Okay, in this video tutorial, I'm going to add the view module to our MVC. So because I want to write code that I can reuse over and over, in order to be able to add the view to every single controller I create, rather than create an individual view object for every single controller, what I would do is I would create another class called controller inside the core function, and within that controller in the core function, I will add anything I need all the other controller to share. So for that reason, what I'm going to do is I'll simply go to the core folder and create a new class. I'll call it controller. Okay. So in the controller class, what I would do is I would define a variable called view, right? This is a variable that will hold a view for the controller. Now, what I want to do is the view in this case can be an HTML page that represents the data. So each of the action that I create for the controller can have their own view. But in this class, I will hold the view for each of those actions. So let's go ahead and create a function that allows me to define the view for the individual action. So I'll go ahead with the public function. I'll call it view. I need a view name. The view name is actually where the view is located. So, or the name of the view file that I want to load. And also, I will have a data or the values that I want to pass to the view, as well as a second parameter. So of course, what I would do is I will make this one equal empty array in case if the parameter is not passed, so data will contain an empty array. Now, in order to make this work, what I'm going to do is I will create an object. So if I create a view object, then simply I can add more methods and properties to that class. So that for that reason, I'll go to the core. I'll create another class. I'll call it view. And in the view class, what I'm going to do is I will need two pieces of information about every HTML file that I want to use to represent the data of that action in that controller. So I will go ahead and create one. I'll call it view file, which represent where the file is, and also go ahead and create another one called view data. So the view data is the data that I want to pass to the view. This is going to be an array that contains the information. Let's go ahead and create a constructor for the view class. So I'll go ahead, public function, constructor, and with this constructor, whenever I want to create the view function, I definitely will have to have, will pass, not have to have, but will pass is a good idea because it makes less code later on, to pass the view file and the view data. So simply I will go here, I will say this view file is equal the view file I'm receiving, and of course this view data is equal the view data I'm receiving. Okay, so as far as view concerned, I'm done with this, right? So let's go back to our controller. So here I will simply go ahead and start instantiating the view object. If you remember, I have created a variable called view. So simply go and say this view, the view of this class, is equal new view, and I will pass the view name I'm receiving and the data from this, right? Now also, in some cases, I might need to do something with this view object. That is why I just return the view. So in case if I call this function from anywhere, or this method from anywhere, the return of this method will be the current view of this object, right? Okay, let's review what we did. I have created a view class that contains view file and view data. I have created a constructor which can assign the file and data to the view. I also create a general controller that allows me to actually use these view or any other extra information that I want to be added to any other controller I'm creating. So for that reason, what I'm going to do is I'll go to the home controller, the one that I used in our previous video, and I will extend the controller. So this way, Now my home controller will actually inherit what is inside this class, and that is the view and the method view. So I have the view object, view method. Let's go back to home controller. Now that I have access to these two, I want to go ahead and change my index, right? So if I go here right now and first let me show you the value of the ID and the name. So I can go ahead and say ID is, so we show the value of parameter. I forgot to add this one in the previous video, but it's simply the parameters are passed already. If it is passed, then I can access it here as well. So I'll go here and I say and name is, okay, let me do this as well, right? So let me go ahead and open my browser and pass this information. So let me do this. I'll go to home, I go to index, I pass 10 as an ID and foo as the name. Here you go. So I have ID is 10 and name is foo. And if you remember from my previous video, this information is passed right from here. Let me just bring up the code so you can see which part I'm referring to. So if you look at the application, when I go ahead and call the call user function array, simply the parameters are passed. And as I said, since this is an array, based on the number of variable you have as a parameter of the function, each element will be set to that parameters in the same order. So now let's go ahead. So I have this. Let me just comment this for now. I know I got I just went to different topics here, but I just wanted to mention this because I forgot from last video. Okay, now we have created our views, right? Let's go ahead and do this. What I want to do is, if I go here and say, let me word dump this so you can see what we have in there right now. So if I go here right now to the browser and refresh this, as you can see, I have the home controller and protected field view is null, right? So I'm going to create this right now. The way I do it is by calling this view. I call the view method because it is null at this moment, right? I pass the name. So the way I want to organize this in the view folder, I'm going to create a folder per controller. So I'll go here and I say, okay, I want a directory, call it home. And inside that directory, I want to go ahead and create an action file or action view. So what I do is I'll go ahead for the first one, which is index. I'll go and say index.php. The extension is not that important. Just put it there to separate it from different regular file, right? So I have index.html. Let me just go ahead and put h1 homepage, right? Also, I'll create another one. Let me just go back to the home controller. I have another one called about us, right? So I'll go ahead and create another one, another file. I'll call it about us.php, right? The name doesn't need to be the same as the method name, but the reason I put it here so it requires less documentation. I can find the associated file to the action faster, right? So now that I have this, if you remember from the view function, it requires view name and the data, right? So if I go back here, the very first parameter is the name. Now, I would say, okay, this is inside the home because I know all the views are inside the view folder. So I just reference the directory contains the associate view to these current methods or action. So I will go ahead and say, okay, this is index, right? In this case, I don't put the name.php or extension.php at the end because simply I can append that inside this function when I'm looking for that file. Next, I will go ahead and simply send all the data that I have. So the data should be an array. So I'll simply open an array, I'll give an ID, and I will say, okay, ID is whatever is the value of, sorry, name. Let me just do it this way. Name is equal value of the name. So what I'm doing right now is I'm passing a name or attaching a name to every parameters in my HTML page later on. So if I want to reference the name, I can simply go and say, give me the name, right? Then I will go ahead and say, okay, next one is ID. Simply I go ahead and add the ID there as well. So now that I did this, let me just put a semicolon here. So now that I did this, if I go ahead and refresh the page, you will simply see that the view has a view file and the view data has the name foo and 10. Of course, if I go and change this one to test, then you see the values are changed. Or if I go and change this one to 122, it's going to change, right? So I successfully named the view file and I passed the parameter to the view object. Now is the time to actually go to the view and start creating these fields, or these the access the view. Sorry. Now is the time to access the. So what I'm going to do is this. I go to the view page. I'm right here, and whenever I want to actually include the HTML file or the PHTML file into this action, I simply will call a function. So I'll create a function to make my life easier. I have more access over when to include the view. So I'll go ahead and create a function. I'll call it render, right? And what I have to do in render is simply I have to go and check if the file exists. If you remember, in index.php inside the public folder, I already defined all the constant as it shows me where the files are, right? So I can simply go ahead and say if file exists, view is the path to the view folder right in here. Then I will go with the view file, which I have set in here. So this is the view file, right? And I add the PHTML right at this moment. So I'm creating the path actually, if this is index method to the index.php inside the home, inside the view. So if the file exists, the only thing I have to do is simply I have to include the file. So I'll go ahead and include the same thing that I had up here, right? Here you go. So now just keep in mind, I have included the view file in this class, which will be part of the method of the controller we called, right? So if I go ahead and refresh this page right now, let me see if I can bring up the browser here. Okay, so if I refresh this right now, right, I don't see much in here. The reason is, let's go back to my code. The reason is, I know what it is. Here you go. If I go back to the home controller, I create the render function, but I did not call the render function. So I'll go here and simply what I will do is I will go and call this view, right? And I will call the render function. How's that, right? So this way I actually execute the method to include this view into this function or this method. So if I go back here right now and simply run this, you can see this is home page. So if I go here and say, what was it, about us, I think. So then simply you will see this one, about us, right? Now let's go change that one too. So I'll go to my code. Now I do the exact same thing in about us, right? The only thing I change is about us name, right? I don't have any parameters, so I just simply go ahead and send an empty array. Remember, this is optional. I don't even need to send this, so I can just ignore this if I don't need to, right? I have an extra curly bracket. Let me remove that. So if I go to browser now, refresh this page, I should be able to see something, which I don't see nothing. Let me check my code one more time. I have the home, about us. These are correct. These are correct. Request is there. Do I have something in about us at all? Oh, I don't have no value. Okay, here you go. About us. Okay, so I'll go back and refresh the page and I'll see the about us. So as you can see, I can simply go to the index, right? And to about us, and individual view will be shown into the browser. Okay, now of course every application you create, they have some common areas in every page, like they have the menu, header, footer, and so on. So for that reason, what I'm going to do is I'm going to organize myself and I create a few views that are shared among any other views that I have in this application. So if I go back to my code here, so what I'm going to do is inside the view I will go ahead and create a file. I'll call it header.phtml, right? Of course, in the header.phtml, I will go ahead and have the header section, which is the HTML file, right? So I have all these information here. Let me get rid of this. I'll show you in a second what it is. Okay, so I will have this, then I will have the body section. Here you go. So this is my header. I'll also go create the footer. So I'll go footer.phtml. Okay, in the footer, I'll just close the body tag and close the HTML tag, right? Now, to just know we are here, so I will say h1, this is from header. Okay, this is from header. Let me just fix this. Okay, so what I have to do is I can simply go ahead and go to these and start adding the header and footer to individual file. This is just a sample. There's so many other ways to do that. Just keep that in mind, right? So I'm just showing you what are the ways of doing this. Just one way. You can go many different ways. You can inject the header and footer at the moment of rendering the view as well. Just keep that in mind. Okay. So now I have the header here. Definitely I'll go and add the footer as well if I need to. So here I'll go ahead, copy this. And I'll put the footer HTML there, right? And I have to do the exact same thing for the other views I have. So I'll go to the index 2. I just do this. I just change this to home page, right? So if I go back here now, you can see this is from the header is there too. If I go to about us, then still you have the header as well. So if I look at the view, you see all these are included as well. The beauty of this is now I can add a menu to my header section, which can be shared by the rest of the code or rest of the pages in this. So what I'm going to do right now is I'll go to my header file and start adding a menu, a sample menu that you can see how it works. So right in here, I go ahead, create the navigation section, right? And UL. And then I have li, home is the one, so I create a link, href is equal, sorry, home, right? Of course, I'll go and close this, home, and I'll also create about us too as well. So here is optional to have the index if I need or not. Doesn't really matter because remember the default value for the action was index. I just put it there so you can see it. And then I have about us, right? And this is the about us section. Okay, so if I go back to the browser, refresh the page, you can simply see the menu are attached and I can simply navigate to different pages now, right? Okay, I already have created a style sheet, so let me just go ahead and add that style sheet to make this video short as well. I don't want to keep typing all those things that you already know. So I'll go inside the public, create a file, a style.css, and then in that style.css I add my navigation. So if I go back here right now, I can simply see the navigation is coming up. Of course, I have to add the style sheet into the head section of this document. So let me just go ahead and do that. So I'll go to the header section and simply I will go ahead link href style.css rel style sheet media all for now. Okay, so let me close this, go back to the browser. So if I refresh this now, should be able to get the menu. For some reason I'm not getting it. It goes to home. Oh, I got it. What is the problem? Because I'm using the .hg access, I have to reference things from the root. So I'll go ahead, refresh this now. Here you go. So I got my menu, right? So I have about us, and I have the home page, right? So as you can see, the menu is shared by every single page. Of course, I can do so many other things here, which I want to quickly show you some tricks as how to add the different title page, different title for each of these views and select the active menu option. Whatever page you're in, I want to change the background color. So what I can do is I can simply go here, and here I can write I can create a if statement, and in case if I find the controller or the action matches the action matches the value, I can simply go ahead and add the active class into the link. So for that reason, what I'm going to do is this. I'll go ahead and add one more functionality here. Let me see what I can do here to get this done. Let me go ahead and print the value of word dump this, right? So if I do this, I go back to the menu and refresh the page. I can see this is the view. So inside the view, I can access the view itself, view object called this. So what I want to do is I want to get the name of the action, because that's how I put this one in. Just keep that in mind, right? Most of the time, we go by the controller name, because each of these menu represent a controller, and so for that case, I will simply go ahead and get the controller. But in the current situation, I just want to look for the second parameter. So what I do is this. I simply go ahead and inside the view, I will create a function. Let me go back to the view. You see, that's the beauty of this design, because now the view is part of the controller, main controller, and the main controller is inherited into the any other controller that I create. So let me go ahead and see what are the things I have to do here, if I can remember. So I'll go to the header, right? That's what I have. So I want to add a new method here. Yes, I'll do that. I'll go ahead, public function get action. Okay. So what I do with the action is this. I will simply go ahead and say return explode. I will explode the values by a slash, because if you remember, when you look at here, these two values are separated by slash. So if I can split this by slash, I get two elements in my array. I simply have to send the second element, right? So I'll go ahead, and since backslash is a special character, I just put two slash to cancel the second one, to not consider as a special character. And then simply I'll go ahead and add pass the view file, right? So the view file is what you see right here. I'm going to split this by a slash, so I get two values. Now, this part will return an array of two elements. So I can simply say, give me the first one. Sorry, the second one. Okay. Now, keep in mind, I have not done any checking here. So I'm assuming there are two parameters are coming and so on. So you have to do some checking when you create this function. So if I go back to the let me see, to the header. Okay, what is the header? Okay, if I go to the header function, right in here, I'm going to create a variable. I'll call it action, right? And I will say this, remember, get action. Okay, so if I do this, then simply I should be able to get the action of the form right now. So let me just go ahead and print the action so you can see this. So if I go ahead and refresh this, oh, parse error, line 27, view.php. So line 27, view.php. What is the problem here? Give me a second. Oh, this is what I gotta do. Here you go. That should make it work. Let me go back to the browser, refresh. Here you go. So I got the about us, right? So if I go to home, then I get the index. Do you see that? So based on that one, I can include the active class that I created in my CSS. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'll go here and I simply will add my ternary operator here. So I will say, let's do this. I'll go ahead and include the PHP, and I will say echo action equal home, or sorry, index, right? then class equal active, right? Else nothing. So that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, let's see if that works, right? Do I have it right? I just have to close the bracket here. So if I go back here right now and refresh this, then you see the home is selected, right? So I can do that for the about us as well. So if I go here, copy this, remember this makes more sense to actually have it for the controller, because each of the other controller that you create will have an index as well, or can have an index. So here I would say about us, right? Now if I go back here, refresh my page, you see about us is selected. So that's one. Also, I want to change the title of the page as well. The way I do it is this. I'll go to the home controller and I will simply will add the information that I need in there. So let me go back to my code. So in my home controller, right in here, before render, I will say this, and I will go ahead say view, this view, page title. The way I'm doing it on fly, I'm adding an attribute to the object view. It's better to have such an attribute inside a class so you actually document it that way and people know that there is such an attribute. So what I'm doing right now is just to show you it is possible, but it's not the right way of doing it. So the better way would be to create a protected variable page title in the view. So here I'm going to say this is home page, this is home page, and for the other one I'll go add another one and I say this is about us page. Okay, now since I have this one assigned to a view, if I go back to the header, like where I have the title, I can simply go ahead, add the title. Of course I need to go to PHP again and I will say is set this page title, the one I just defined, right? If it is there, just echo that this page title. Otherwise, just say welcome to my site or whatever message you want. Okay, so I'll close this. Hopefully it's gonna work. Let me go back to my page. Remember, there is nothing in the title. Refresh the page. Line 10 header.html. Let me go back to my code, see what is wrong. Let's go here, line 10. Okay. Oh, I opened the bracket here, but I forgot to close. It's not necessary, but usually I put that one to make them one statement. So I'll do this. Here you go. About us, and if you look at this is about us page on the title page, and if I go to home, then you see this is the home page, right? I hope you enjoyed this video. In the next video I'm going to show you how to implement the data or the model to extract the data from a flat file, or you can change it later on to database as well. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day.